All right. And we are now live with the newest Illuminated discussions. Today I've got Sophia on from her Nichegamer article on Spyro Reignited.
Hey everyone.
All right. So for anyone who doesn't know what Spyro is for some reason, it's an action platformer game of the whole collectathon genre, basically. You get worlds to explore, collect all the random stuff in the environment.
Lots and lots of collecting.
I'd bring up the story, but it's some bad guy steals crap. Not bad guy. I don't know if that changes by the third game at all, because I didn't play that one at all.
They try adding more. So the first game doesn't have much of anything. It's just all the dragons have been turned into crystal. Go save them and collect gems along the way. And then the second game added more characters and story. And then the third game expands upon the characters and story introduced into.
Does Ripto show back up in 3 at all?
No.
Okay. Yeah, just so everyone knows, like, when I did review the game, like, it's written on the review at the first paragraph, but I basically picked what generally seemed to be considered the best of the trilogy. And that appeared to be Ripto's Rage.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's accurate or not, but that's the idea I got.
I think it was the better one. By 3, it began to be a bit too much. I got kind of worn out of the gameplay loop by the time I hit 3. So I was kind of just like ready for it to be done.
Yeah, that's why I decided to just review after playing through one game, because about 30% of the way through the first one, I was like, all right, if I play through all of these 3 games in succession, I am just going to despise it.
That is one of the, as I begin to do more reviews, that's one of the more interesting aspects to it, because when I review games, I'm very thorough. I try to platinum the games if I can, and if I can't do that, I try to do all the side activities, all the story. I try to do as much as I can. So I'm playing games in a way most people aren't, which can influence how you perceive a game. So like when it came to Spyro, by the third one, I was just exhausted of collecting things, but I'm also playing it in a way people won't. So it's trying to like be critical of what the game is without letting some of like the way I've been playing influence too much. Like Red Dead, I put in under 100 hours, or just around 100 hours in under 6 days in that game, which is a lot of binging, which by the time you finish that, you can just be worn out. And so as a critic, it's weird to try to separate those two, because I can't let the way I'm binging influence like a score. So with Spyro, I really felt that, because I was just exhausted, but I had to like sit back and be like, but it is a pretty well-made game.
Yeah, in the case of like how well it's made, like I can't think of any like major criticisms of like the actual mechanics of how the game works. Like it all functions well, plays smoothly. I had no issues with any kind of glitches coming up.
It was exceptionally polished, which being a Activision published game was very surprising, because I'm so used to getting an Activision game, or really any game from any of the major publishers right now, and just having it be a broken mess. And before release, you know, Spyro had been delayed because it was supposed to be September 9th. Don't quote me on that, but I think September. And it had that delay. They announced the 2 of the games weren't going to be on the disc, so the whole thing sounded like it was going to ship as a disaster. So for it to be as polished, I experienced no major glitches. It's one of the only new games this year that didn't crash my console. I was surprised by that part of it.
Yeah, like, don't get me wrong, I'm a little irritated there is that giant download you still had to do for the second and third game. I mean, these are PlayStation 1 games remastered. This should have all been able to fit on a Blu-ray.
It really should have. I had a review code, disclosure, I had a review code for this game, so I didn't experience the disc stuff, so all of it was a download to me. But I've talked to people who got on the Xbox One, and I think it was like 30 to 40 gigs or something.
I want to say it was like 9 on PS4, but I just saw a big number followed by gigs. So I'm like, I don't really remember if that's true or not, but it is a big download regardless.
It is. I actually want to write an editorial about this somewhat soon with how too many publishers aren't respecting their consumers, and a lot of people have data caps on their internet and just all these things that are like bad download speed. So it's really crappy how gaming is right now with these massive downloads, even for something that is a remake of a game from '98.
Yeah. You know, I should be clear to some people who may be tuning into this for the first time. Typically, the guests I bring on have written a review, like either positive or negative of a game I've reviewed, where I've had a different reaction to it.
Because, yeah, I liked it. You can read my review at nichegamer.com. I gave it an 8 out of 10, and you disliked it.
Yes.
So, what did you dislike about it? Let's start with that.
Like, as I said, like, fundamentally, the whole game is, like, very well made. It all functions and controls well, but the first issue I started noticing is this was a really, really easy game. Like, I discovered randomly by a fluke you could even do the left and right dodging.
Yeah, the little side roll, right?
Yeah, I didn't even realize that was a thing you could do.
It was on net. I never had to use it.
See,
so like I start playing a game, I just kind of hit buttons. I just kind of learn what everything is, and I discovered that I don't think I ever used it in the entire course of the gameplay.
The one time I had to use it is when I fought the second boss, Gulp. I think it was in Ripto.
Yeah, that was actually... I'm not going to say he was challenging, but in the context of the series, he was the hardest one, which doesn't mean much, but...
Yeah, see, don't get me wrong, like, the whole comparison some people did to this of how it suddenly drops you into Dark Souls was a little ridiculous.
I screen grabbed that so we could talk about it. The Eurogamer review.
Don't get me wrong, that was ridiculous.
Have you seen the? Have you?
I did not read that review. No, okay. I just saw that little cap.
Can I read like a quick paragraph so for people listening can hear this? All right. So this is from the Eurogamer official review of Spyro Reignited trilogy. Something that could have done with some tweaking is the game's difficulty, which seems to ricochet between too easy and almost impossible. In classic Spyro fashion, many of the grunt-level enemies can be defeated with a simple fire blast or a charge, while flying levels require pinpoint accuracy and speed, and the bosses are frustratingly punishing. Rather than presenting a fair challenge, I'm going to struggle to laugh during this, defeating Buzz, a toad, which I'll get to in a second, felt like repeatedly banging my head on a brick wall due to the limited hints given to guide the player. The breakneck shift in difficulty, meanwhile, felt like I'd suddenly been dropped into Dark Souls in the middle of a game of tiddlywinks. Defeating this oversized toad was more relief than a triumph, and unfortunately, many of Reignited bosses also fall prey to this pattern. So, you didn't play 3, right?
I did not.
Okay, so the boss she's talking about, the Buzz, is a toad in the third game. He has 3 moves. You have to hit him 6 times. So in his first wave, he just hops around and you just headbutt him about 3 times to knock him into lava. When he's in lava, he takes damage. Then he jumps out and he rolls after you, and you just run around the arena for like 5 seconds maybe, and then he stops. You repeat that, hit him, he gets in the lava, jumps out, rolls after you. So then when he jumps out for the second time, he starts surrounding himself with a ring of fire between every time you headbutt him. So you headbutt him, he surrounds himself with fire. It lasts about 1 to 2 seconds. Then you headbutt him again, stop moving, let him do the ring of fire, headbutt him again, he's in the lava, and then he rolls after you. So those are the 2 moves right now, the ring of fire and the rolling. So then after you've hit him into the lava 4 times, you need to do it 2 more. He jumps out of the lava, does the roll after you, and then he just spews fire at you, which you just hop over it, and then you just keep headbutting him. He'll spew the fire, you headbutt him, he's in the lava, you win. It's literally 3 moves. He has no more than 3 moves that are done in the same pattern every time. And they compare it, like the critic compared it to Dark Souls. It's hilarious.
There's a degree I can understand where they're coming from with this. Like, don't get me wrong, this comparison he made is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But just playing through 2, there is a ridiculous difficulty spike on that second boss. It just, when you step back and just kind of take your time to figure out how things work, like, again, that's when I had to start actually learning how to do that stupid dodge roll thing to avoid some of that stuff.
And I think the difficulty with that one came from just some of the game's like kind of like dated jank.
Yeah.
Like I didn't find it too overly challenging, but in compared to everything else, it was the one that you're kind of like, oh, this feels a bit different. Yeah. And I think it just came. He has that move where he'll like run and jump at you, and sometimes they'll like feel like you should have been clear of it, and you'll still get hit by it. But that was like really my only issue.
Yeah, it's just, I do think there is a bit of an issue when a game just has just bizarre difficulty spikes out of nowhere like that. Again, it's not dropping you into Dark Souls. I wouldn't even compare this to some of the like mid-range Mega Man X bosses from back on the Super Nintendo. But it's just how it just comes out of nowhere on you. And again, it's the only time in the game I really even had to do the dodge roll.
Yeah. Honestly, I think the hardest thing were some of those time trials trying to destroy everything in one go could take a few attempts, but that was about it. Just learning what the correct path was.
See, that's actually the funnest I had in the game, were those speedways, I think they were called.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the ones they had in the first game were definitely the more they were more of a stickler on how much extra time you got, so those were the more like challenging ones, and those were really fun trying to like, some of them I'd beat with like 0.5 seconds left.
Yeah. See, I think though what my big problem with the game came down to is it just didn't feel like there was much variety in what you were doing from the beginning to end of it. Like, even with 2, how it added a lot of different enemy types, I didn't really feel like I was doing much different at all, depending on what area of the game I was in.
No, it's a 90s collectathon through and through. See, and even like it has a lot of enemy variety, but they're all either you flame them once or you headbutt them. It's that. So it's really simple in how they are, but I did appreciate just how everything looked different. It's just a reskin of the same things. Like they all have the same similar mechanics, but I kind of appreciated just the visual differences, and it's well animated.
Yeah. See, I brought this up, like, at first I thought I was just being a bit unfair on that regard, because earlier, like, this was the first time I've played these games. I never played them back on the PS1. But earlier I played the Sly Cooper collection, which those games originally came out on PS2. But again, I played the trilogy release first. And I was thinking, maybe it's just unfair because that was still in my mind, and they're very similar style of games. But there's so much more to do in Sly Cooper. So, but then I looked back at what else was around the time. Like 2 years prior to the first Spyro was Super Mario 64.
Yeah.
There is so much more you can do in that game. And
yeah.
2 years later, we get Spyro, which didn't have that kind of content. And then after that, Ripto's Rage, which is the one I completed, it barely felt like there was any more than the first Spyro. So I don't think there was even that much in the game compared to its contemporaries.
I think part of it stems from, again, Spyro's very much that collectathon, but I think part of it was Mario at its time, I think, was geared towards a more larger audience, while at least in like how I look at the series, Spyro's always been geared more towards, kids 10 to 13. And so it's less to do, it's easier in that because of what that game is trying to be and what it's trying to aim at. And I've always enjoyed Spyro. Like, I was looking forward to playing this because, as I talk about in my review, I never got to beat Spyro as a kid. So like I was born in 89. I'm a 90s kid. And I grew up in the time you used to be able to rent consoles from Blockbuster. If anyone remembers what a Blockbuster was.
I do,
And
actually.
in 98, not long after Spyro came out, we got to rent a console. And so I had to leave it on because rented consoles didn't come with memory cards. And so I played through Spyro and I was well over halfway into the game. And then my mom turned the console off when I was like 9. And so I lost all the data. And then I never got a chance to play Spyro again. Like I ended up getting a PlayStation less than a year later, which came with a demo disc. But I've always wanted to beat Spyro. So like one thing that appealed to me with the Reignited trilogy was just kind of playing something I enjoyed as a kid. To me, it was just that nostalgia factor. I knew it would be easy. I knew it wouldn't be overly complex. I just think it was kind of a fun, cute little game. And I think games like this too, it depends on when you play them. For me, it came at a good time because I've been binging games all month for review. And so to just be able to play something that was easy, that I could just sit back and just not focus too much of time on, it was just kind of a nice, relaxing, chill experience. And that's what I enjoyed about it.
Like anyone who played this game before and enjoyed it, I could definitely recommend grabbing this trilogy. It looks and plays really well. So if it's for nostalgia, yeah, get it. It's great. I just don't know if it really has a use outside of that, especially with some of the games that are available now, like the Sly Cooper collection or more recently A Hat in Time.
And I agree with that. It's not a game. I don't think it's a game that'll appeal to many people who don't have experience with the series or having played even just like the first game as a kid. It is dated in what you do, and with so many better modern platformers, it's not one that really stands above anything other than its visuals. I did adore its visuals, but it really is kind of a game from a certain place in time that is geared towards those that had experience with it. Or it'd probably be a good game to give to your kids. If you have kids right now, they would probably enjoy it. But I don't think it's one that's meant to win over new people. And it was kind of the same with Crash Bandicoot, which the same studio Toys for Bob did. That wasn't a remake. That was going to appeal to people that didn't play Crash Bandicoot.
I still have no familiarity with Crash Bandicoot. Not played any of those games.
I think I played the first 2 as a kid. I never played the remake though, because I played the ones as a kid and they were fine, but I've never been like a big Crash fan, so that whole remake just didn't appeal to me.
You see, back in the PlayStation day, that was basically my RPG machine.
Yeah, I didn't get into RPGs until the PlayStation 2.
It's when I started expanding more outside of that, actually.
Yeah.
I think the first non-Zelda action game I really liked was God of War.
It's crazy to think about like what the PlayStation 2 had for a library overall. That was a good console. Around that time, I guess this would have been like 2004, 2005, but then I fell hard into like first-person shooters and Halo 2 online and stuff like that.
I've never been a first-person shooter guy. Like, I really like GoldenEye 007 on the 64.
Oh, that is not dated. Like, if they remade that, that would be a disaster.
I do not deny this.
I kind of play a little bit of... There's very few genres of games I won't touch. I don't play a lot of real-time strategy. I don't like sports games, but I'll play most anything else. I'll try a lot of things.
That's about how I am. I've liked StarCraft, or not, yeah, StarCraft.
I had Dune 2000 on the computer like long time ago. I enjoyed that one, but just never really got into the RTSs.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I don't mind some of like the turn-based strategies, like Civilization was fun.
Yeah, they're fun, but they're not ones that really hook me. Like, I can play them, have fun, and acknowledge they're good games, but they're not ones I feel like, they're not ones I enjoy playing for hours on end. They're kind of ones I'll maybe pick up for a few hours some random day. like once every couple of years, have a good day with it, and then be like, all right, I'm good for a bit.
I just realized after 20 minutes, we basically covered everything about Spyro.
There really isn't a lot to talk about. I mean, I will say, as the series goes on, its core gameplay loop remains the same. You find gems in every level. In the first game, you free the dragons. In the second game, you find the artifacts. In the third game, you get the dragon eggs. So they're very similar in that build up. You pick the world you go in. But as the series goes on, it at least does add. So like the boss fights in the first game are almost non-existent. There's a few, but they're nowhere near like mechanically what they are in 2. So 2 starts to build upon the boss fights and has more mini games. And then, because I think it was the second one where you can play ice hockey. And then 3 has some more mini games. And then they also added, there's a lot more boss fights in the third game, which are better made. And again, this is in context of this being a kid's game. They are better than the ones that came before. So like as the series goes on, they add some, they did improve in some ways, but it's that gameplay loop really is just enter the level, collect the gems, hit 100%, leave, go to the next level, collect all the gems, hit 100%, leave.
I think one of the other issues I have, like, this isn't unique to Spyro, but it's, why are there so many gems? Is it really that interesting? Like, hey, there's a tree. Run a circle around the tree to grab them all. Do this for 5 other trees you find.
It's just that era of time, just that collect-a-thon stuff. Something that I don't think really does well in today's environment either, because...
I don't know, did you see how well Super Mario Odyssey did and how many people love that game?
I guess, yeah. I don't think Odyssey was bad, but I wasn't a bit like the biggest fan of it either.
I liked it, but it didn't even make my top 10 that year.
Mm-hmm.
In part because, hey, there's a giant obvious bump directly in front of you. Pound on it. Have a star.
Yeah. And I had something I was going to say and then I lost my thought. But yeah, I don't totally disagree. Like I said, I gave Spyro a good review. I had fun with it. I think it was a well-made game. And I think it achieved what it set out to do. And so when all things considered, it's a well-made remake of a game that is from a particular period of time. It's not one I would probably ever go back and replay, though. Like, I've now beaten platinumed the 3 games in Spyro. I'm done. I'm good. I had my fun with it. I had my relaxing experience. I can put it aside.
I'd say, yeah, it is a really well-made remake of that trilogy. And if you have some nostalgic factor attached to it, it's definitely worth grabbing. But I don't think a game like Sly Cooper, which is still available right now for less, is going to be inaccessible to people of the same age.
No.
But it still offers a lot more to do. Just when compared with what's available even then or now, I don't know if this has much value outside of the nostalgia.
I both agree and disagree. Like, I agree about the nostalgia thing. That really plays a big factor. But I do think if you gave it to a kid today, they could have fun with it. I think the cute animations, and it's a really good game to introduce like your kid to something. Like, it's not a lot to do, some easy mechanics. I mean, there's really only 2 buttons you have to worry about or 3 buttons you have to worry about the entire game. Jump, fire, and headbutt.
Occasionally dodge roll.
And I do, like I said, I think it was just a relaxing experience. I think to some people that may just want to just sit back and chill and enjoy something that just looks great. Like, I really love the art style of it. I think it has some offerings there for what it's worth, but in the same way, I also kind of agree with you. There is so many better platformers out there. There's at least platformers out there that offer some level of challenge. The most challenging aspect of Spyro was sometimes it just didn't want to do what you wanted it to do. Like, it was a pain in the ass to get Spyro to run in a specific direction at times.
Yeah, when you're doing the charges, yeah.
And there was times like you would be like doing a jump and like you were above where you should be landing, but then you'd hit what almost seemed like an invisible wall if you were like 1 pixel below and you just fall to your death, even though visually it looked like you're above the threshold of where you should be landing.
I don't remember that happening too often.
Happened to me in the first game. Well, in the second game they added, so yeah, it makes sense why it wouldn't happen to you. In the second game they added you could hit triangle and you could do that little swoop up, so to give you that little like extra
Oh
oomph at the
yeah,
end of the jump.
the glide they called it.
Yeah, the first game doesn't have that, so you can only just glide to stuff, so you can't do that little hit triangle and get that like little extra like couple inches of air.
Yeah, I don't remember being able to do that when I played through the first game.
Which is
But
weird because you think they would have just added that in there being like the remake, but
yeah.
keep all 3 games consistent with how they made it, since they did take creative liberties in some spots.
Yeah. I do like that they seem to have like tried to keep it largely intact for how it used to be, just with the updated graphics, rather than just try to remake the experience entirely. Yeah, I appreciate that bit of it. I like that there's an effort to try to preserve some of these older games like this.
And as I wrote in my review, I think one thing that stood out is there's a lot of heart in the game. It actually feels like the studio wanted to make this one. It feels like it was like they put a lot of passion into it with how lively it's animated, how great the art style is. So I think that really stood out to me. I do think Toys for Bob is doing a great job with these remakes. Like Crash isn't one that stands out to me, but I can appreciate why people liked their Insane trilogy. I think the Reignited trilogy they did a good job with recapturing what Spyro was. So I do look forward to what they do next.
I'll definitely keep an eye out on them. Again, the game is very well done. I hope they don't pull these massive downloads again in the future, but otherwise.
Yeah, sadly, I think the downloads are here to stay. Too many games this year have been doing it. What?
I can hope the trend dies. Like that whole online pass thing some games were doing for a while.
Yeah.
You want to play online? You got to pre-order the game or pay extra.
Out of curiosity, so when you asked me to be on the stream, one of my first questions was like, out of all the games I've reviewed recently, why do you want to talk Spyro? And you said it's because it's one of the only ones you've played that I've played that you had different opinions on.
Yeah.
And I got the impression you went into Spyro kind of maybe thinking, I feel like you went in not expecting much in general. So out of all the games that have come out this fall, why did you personally get Spyro? What stood out? What stuck out to you enough to be like, I'm gonna buy this?
It's one of those games that, like, while I never played it back in the day, I did see it, and I always thought it looked interesting. I liked a lot of those 3D platformers, at least from what I played on Nintendo. As I said, PlayStation was mostly my RPG machine.
Yeah.
Never got around to emulating it at any point. So I'm like, hey, we're getting an HD remaster of the game. I never got the chance to play it when I was younger. Give it a shot. I did that with Sly Cooper, and that turned out really well. So I figured there was a chance Sly Cooper was going to be, or Spyro was going to be a fun one. It's a bit let down, but it happens.
Yeah. I think we all purchase games that we end up being down on.
That's been me largely this year. I have been very disappointed with this year's game releases compared to last year.
I'm glad I'm not alone in that, because a lot of games have come out that are getting these crazy high scores, and I'm playing them and I'm just like, it's okay. Like, I thought God of War was fun, but I would never have given that game a 10. I think, like, if I was to review God of War, it would have been like a 7.5. Spider-Man, I was really down on because I think they handled their open world activities. I think they were awful. Like, they're these well-made games. They're technical. They're super well-made, but I think they have so many other problems in terms of gameplay.
Yeah, like, I didn't get around to playing Spider-Man. I kind of wanted to grab it. I just had other things coming out at the time, so I ended up missing that one. I've heard good things about Red Dead, but I've never been into the series.
Yeah. I reviewed Red Dead pretty well. I gave it an 8.5 in my review. Again, anyone listening can read it on Nichegamer.com. It has a lot of problems, but I did have a lot of fun with it. It's kind of a weird game.
Like, what was it? This year so far, my favorite games have been like Project Octopath, Crosscode, and Dragon Quest XI. But at the same time, if I were to take Octopath, which has been my favorite so far, and rank that with my games from last year, it maybe would have come in 6th.
I think my game of the year, and I can't technically talk about it now, I can't name it, but I've got a review going up at Embargo tomorrow at noon, and it's by far my game of the year. I've been playing something all week, and that is just, it's a super difficult RPG that is just, I had a blast with it. So my game of the year, I'll be having a review soon.
I'm gonna have to see what that is.
But in
an RPG starved this year.
But in it's an action RPG. I'm sure other people, if you look at what's coming out, you can figure out what it is, but it's good. It comes out this week. That's your clue to anyone listening.
But I don't even have any games other than 2 more on my list.
Yeah.
For this year.
Outside
Smash and Katamari.
Yeah. Outside of that though, if I wasn't considering that one yet, just at things I can talk about, I think Red Dead would take my game of the year just by default, but I've been really just underwhelmed with so many titles this year. I think there's been good experiences. Like no game, I've gotten few games like I just outright hated, but I've just been really disappointed by a lot of games.
I think there was something I actually just straight up hated this year.
Oh, you know what? Vampire. I bought Vampire at release. That was bad. Oh, and then, well, I got this one knowing it'd be bad, but I reviewed The Quiet Man, and if you want to talk about it,
I've only heard bad things about it.
I had fun writing the review, though. I took this really just snarky, bitchy, sarcastic approach when I wrote that one. I'm actually looking through my trophies right now, too.
God, like, I'm looking at the list of games I had I just didn't like this year. None of them are even, like, very interesting bad outside of Detroit Become Human.
Oh, yeah. Okay, you know what? Yeah, that one. Yeah, I guess there has been some games I hated this year. Vampire, Detroit.
It's a terrible game, and I don't like it, but I can't bring myself to hate it. Like,
Yeah.
At least Detroit, there's some moments that are just so, what the fuck are you doing? It's hilarious.
Did you get the singing ending?
God, no.
Oh, there's a part where they're about to be shot, and you can just start singing to show you're a human. So the people start.
What? I don't.
Look up a video, but you can get this like hokey like. We're human, we're singing, and then all the guys aiming guns at you put them down, and then that's like one of the endings. And then like the robots are accepted, they sang, so so like I kind of knew going into Detroit I probably wasn't gonna like it because I don't like David Cage games. I've played a decent chunk of them, and every one I'm like, this is awful, but I was like, I still got trapped into like, all right, I'll try this one. And
I am the reluctant David Cage defender.
See, I think the best David Cage game is the one he has no part of, and that was Until Dawn, who took a lot of elements from what David Cage does, but did it like infinitely better.
I didn't play Until Dawn, actually. I might have to.
If you have any enjoyment of how David Cage games are, Until Dawn is a really good experience. It's a lot of fun, and there's actually, when you play, there feels like there's more risk to things.
Here's the thing I'll say about David Cage. Despite everything wrong with him, there are few game directors out there who can build that effective of an atmosphere.
Yeah.
Like that scene from Heavy Rain where you're just sawing at your own hand.
Mm-hmm.
That was fantastic, but it's bogged down by the fact it's written by David Cage.
Mm-hmm. And his games that I've played, they all have good moments here and there. They all have like those like intense, high stakes story moments. But it's like it's what you do between them. So with Detroit, I enjoyed the first little bit. Like in the very beginning of the game, you're doing all these like pointless tasks, you know, cleaning the house and things like that.
Wash dishes.
But in that moment, I thought it was fine because like it's introducing you like these are what they are. They're gonna break out of this soon. So like I was able to accept that. But then every level has these just walk around and kind of investigate and do pointless tasks, and there's no change to that. So like you may not be washing dishes at the end, but like you're picking up a bag, walking to the window, setting the bag down, opening the bag, and it just kind of adds up to be an experience that isn't fun.
Yeah. It's like, again, I can't recommend, even the games of his I can't recommend to anybody. Because
No,
they're just so bad.
I did laugh at how heavy-handed he's such a bad writer. He's so heavy-handed. Now, a lot of journalists were getting all like fake offended at it, and like his heavy-handedness isn't something to be offended over. It's just hilarious. Like it's just funny. Like the robots ride in the back of the bus. Just the imagery he uses is just funny because of how like it's just so heavy. Like he's so poor at implementing his own ideas.
The worst part is like when you're doing the Underground Railroad bit and the woman directly says, "This is the same thing that happened to black people."
I think
Yes, we got the point.
there's yeah, actually, so the singing part was funny, but I like how we've just gone off track of Spyro, by the way.
Yeah.
But um my favorite part of Detroit and just how like corny and bad it was when you're walking with I'm forgetting his name, but you're playing as the black robot guy, who's probably the better character in the game. And
Malcolm
or
X. I
yeah,
know that's not who he is.
but anyways, you're walking down the street leading this movement of androids, and you're getting this like it's almost like you're Jesus and he's just pointing at people and unlocking them, which one makes no sense in the narrative because any other time you like free a robot, you've got to touch them, but you're just walking down and just hitting X and just pointing at robots like as this like orchestral theme is kind of playing, and it's like almost like religious in its music, and it felt like I was Jesus walking down the road freeing all these people, and it was so corny. And my partner, she was watching me whenever anytime I'd play Detroit, and we were just sitting there laughing. It was so hilarious. And just the cheesiness of it, and I did have fun with Detroit in that way. Like the heavy-handedness of his writing was funny, and like just like a really corny way. It was just hilarious. But yeah,
I also loved how he couldn't decide what marginalized groups the robot were supposed to be.
Yeah.
Like, I just pulled up my review just to get the list I'd written on here. They are simultaneously blacks, gays, transgenders, Jews, Mexican women.
Yeah.
They're all of these things.
Detroit become minority or marginalized. Detroit become marginalized. And it was
so sad because I really liked Connor too. Like Connor and Malcolm X were great characters.
The chick storyline I didn't care as much about, and like her, like pretty early on, I predicted that the girl. Spoilers to anyone who's listening to this, sorry, but early on, I pretty much predicted that the little girl you're taking care of was going to be an android, so that kind of lost its moment. So when it was finally revealed, I just looked at my partner. I was like, "I told you, I fucking told you, I told you."
I guess I didn't see that coming because narratively that makes no sense.
It doesn't.
It completely undercut its own themes.
But that's what David Cage does. I mean, if you look at Heavy Rain has scenes that make no fucking sense in the context of what the plot twist is with the detective being the bad guy. And David Cage is just he's so bad at writing. I think Quantic Dream is the stuff they put out are tech demos masquerading as games. They don't make games. They make tech demos that show, hey, look how pretty we can make these graphics and these things. And they're just tech demos for Sony to then he just kind of forces a game into them, but they're tech demos for like, look at what technology can do right now. Because Detroit is a gorgeous game with some good details.
All of his games are.
Yeah.
They're just written by David Cage.
My favorite too was the design of the androids made no sense. So like, you know how they'll take off those things on the side of their head, which are supposed to be like to let people know that they're androids? Why would they be designed to be able to take off the little spinning circles and heal it over? Why? What company designed them that way? That's a terrible design flaw. The one thing that lets you know they're androids, oh, they can just heal that.
I have no idea what he was thinking. Like, I still remember back when they were doing like promotion for what was the one after Heavy Rain? Beyond Two Souls. I still distinctly remember David Cage coming up on stage and saying, yeah, all these other games out there just try to get you involved with like these gunfights and car chases and explosions. I'm here to show you something real. Then you see a trailer that is full of gunfights, car chases, and explosions.
And Detroit itself is full of that too.
I don't know how much self-awareness he has at this point.
It reminds me of the did you ever see the E3 where they were promoting that Aaron Paul Need for Speed movie? So it was the EA press conference and they were going to reveal an exclusive trailer for Need for Speed. And the guy comes out and he's like, with this movie, we wanted to get to the realism of street racing. We wanted to get to what street racing really is. Cue trailer where cars are like they're racing like high-end sports car and flying and crashing through the air and doing like these crazy jumps and just like the most over-the-top action that you expect out of a car movie, played right after the guy had been like, we were aiming for realism. We wanted to give you the realistic street racing scene. And then cue like a Lamborghini or whatever just flying through the air.
I wonder how aware these people are of what they're saying sometimes. Like, David Cage, I think, is just completely off his rocker. He's a madman.
Yeah.
Some of these others, though, I don't know. Are they in on the joke?
It kind of depends on how that stuff is done. You know, in a lot of ways, marketing is typically separated from a lot of these stuff. But I feel like even then, they have to know, like the Need for Speed guy had to know what was coming. So for him to say that was ridiculous. David Cage, I mean, it's take like Peter Molyneux, who he's got to know the stuff he's saying is just made up. And I don't know. It's weird. A lot of these people are just kind of, they're separated from things, but they're in on it too. I really don't know. It's an interesting question.
Molyneux, I think he's just over idealistic. Like, it's not that I think what he's saying is necessarily wrong. Like when he's promised something in his games, he just didn't realize he wouldn't be able to deliver on it.
I used to think that, but he's done it so many times now. And I think the moment for me where it really cinched that like he just knows he's kind of like a con man in some ways was the whole 22 cans, what's inside the box debacle, where whoever got to the inside of the box would be rewarded with a quote unquote life-changing prize. And it was this like clicking game. Did you ever play it? It was a mobile game.
I did not, but
okay,
I've heard
so
about it.
Yeah, so it's about getting, like, everyone would, like, you chip away at this box, only one person could win, and millions of people engaged with it. And so what was inside the box was a chance to be, like, play God, I think, in that Goddess or Godess game he made. And you would get some cut of the game's profits and then spend a day in the studio and hang out with Peter Molyneux. And if you ever... I'm not going to repeat everything, so I'm probably going to botch it in my mistelling. But if you ever get a chance, just look up the 22 cans box game debacle and how the fan who won got so screwed over and just how shitty Molyneux was. Like, the guy's just so far up his own ass. He's an arrogant asshole.
Yeah, but I've seen things like this happen enough in the past, so we're just. I think, yeah, he just went too far up his own ass, but I think he believes his own hype sometimes.
Yeah.
It was like with Tim Schafer. Like, you heard all those stories about how behind the scenes he just wanted too much, but you'd hear from him like, no, it's just the studios trying to cut me off. All the problems are their fault, blah, blah, blah. And then people saw what happened when they tried to back him with their own money through Kickstarter. It's like, hey, maybe these AAA studios are right.
I think a lot of it too is like a case by case basis. I think it kind of depends on how much. I mean, a lot of these people that run the studio, in many ways, they're also marketers. So you have to expect when Molyneux came out talking about like the Fable games and all this stuff, he's marketing at the same time. So making these huge lofty promises, you know, he's trying to market his games. So I think some of the best studios are the ones where they don't really have that like publicly well-known figurehead whose job is to market it, and then they just kind of make good games and put them out. I think once you start getting these developers that are kind of become like the rock stars, quote unquote, inside their field, that's where they start making all these promises that they can't keep, and they start kind of living the high life too much in the public eye. And I think it's better to separate the developers from like the ones trying to market it in some ways, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
And so like when Molyneux comes out and is like, you can plant an acorn and it'll grow into a tree. I mean, there was an article a few years ago interviewing developers about that, and the developers working on Fable at the time were like, behind the scenes were like, no, don't say that. We can't do that yet. And I think it's just Molyneux kind of would make stuff up as a marketer. He wasn't a game developer on the stage. He was the marketer.
I'm not entirely sure on him, though. Like, I do think he assumed that would happen. He just didn't have an actual idea of what was going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
He just thought he could say it and someone could get it done for him.
Which, yeah, I'm actually don't know like what his level of game design is. Like, I'm actually don't know like what he can do. Like, it never seems like he does his own coding, but I'm not going to say that because I really don't know. Like, I'm almost just wondering aloud. Like,
I always thought he was involved in the programming part, but now that I'm thinking about it, I'm not sure either. Was he just an ideas man?
When you read about like the debacles at these studios he had, 22 Cans, Lionhead, it always just seems like he's very kind of not in the know in a lot of things. Like, I don't know. I really don't know.
I just wish some of these people would like take a tip from the Xeno team to start for how to react to stuff like this. 'Cause I don't know if you played a lot of the Xeno games.
No, I haven't.
Games they worked on.
No.
But like, it was a lot of the team behind, say, Chrono Cross back on the PlayStation 1 formed Monolith Soft. Mm-hmm. But with Chrono Cross, you know, you kind of had that problem of you had so many characters. They were so useless to anything.
So I'm ashamed.
There's a lot of crap in the game that was kind of pointless.
I'm ashamed to admit that I never played Chrono Cross. I've played Chrono Trigger, of course, which is one of my all-time favorite games, but I've never played Cross.
Cross is good. It just kind of had that problem of they tried to shove all that in. Yeah. Then, you know, they went on to make Xenogears.
Mm-hmm.
And despite what that game did right, there's no denying it's clear at least an entire game's worth of content had to get cut because it was too much crap to fit in one game. Then they went on to Xenosaga, which by splitting into 3 games, they did better. But there was still clearly a lot of stuff that had to get cut.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, they got to Xenoblade, which, all right, they finally started to realize how much content you can put into a single game. It's something they started to improve on as time went. Whereas David Cage just goes more and more up his own ass as this shit happens. He doesn't learn from his mistakes.
No, that's kind of an interesting thing that a lot of developers, and I think a big push of this is actually from the publishing end, but you're seeing that now where a lot of teams are starting to put in too much things in their game. and the stuff they're jamming into the games aren't always necessarily fun or necessary. It's kind of why like I'm open world out, because like open world games have kind of fallen into this pattern of just like pointless collectible tasks and stuff with very little narrative things in between main story. And like that was my big issue with Spider-Man, is like all the open world activities were miserable, and they kind of put too much of certain things that were unnecessary. And so I think a lot of studios really struggle to find the balance of like where they should cut something off, what kind of content they should make.
Yeah, I think it's there's a big issue people were having for a while with how short some games were coming out.
Mm-hmm.
So they're like, oh, we need to make our games longer.
Yeah.
And they focused more on making them longer rather than adding stuff to do that was fun.
Yeah. And too many games are bad at padding out the length of their games. And I mean, it really is just padding in a lot of titles. Because, yeah, you don't want to pay $60 for a game you can beat in 5 hours. But you also don't want to pay $60 for a game that's 100 hours. That's just 100 hours of the exact same thing. And
I think what a lot of them need to do is go back and play some of those older games that went on for that long. Just, look, no one complained about the length of this game. Like Dark Cloud 2. I don't know if you played that one.
I love the Dark Cloud games, and I've always been upset we never got Dark Cloud 3, which was promised like 15 years ago.
I love Dark Cloud 2 so much, but
yeah,
that is a long game. But everything is so fun. The fishing, speed of building your weapons, the actual levels are fun. Raising your fish can be a pleasant side activity. It's all fun.
Yeah. That's actually, when it came to Red Dead Redemption 2, the most fun I had in that game was actually when I was just not focusing on story stuff, and I was just kind of going out in the world and waiting, like letting all these random things happen to me. And it was fun. Like there's a lot to do. And in some ways they put in too much. Like there's a lot of pointless mechanics, like annoying survival things that aren't hard. They're just annoying. But when you're just encountering like this random stuff, that was when the game was fun. And so they filled their game with a lot to do. And a lot of that, like, there's some mixed opinions on it, but I had fun with that stuff. But then you get games like, you know, a lot of Ubisoft titles where it's just filled to the brim with all this stuff that just gets old quickly. Or I'm going to keep picking on Spider-Man, and its annoying open world design.
Eventually I will sit down and play that game.
It's on a technical level, it's well made. It's got beautiful animations, and like the fluidity of Spider-Man's movements is great. The story, for the most part, is enjoyable. It ends on a really good note. Some of the stuff in the middle is kind of overly long, and it's okay. It's the open world stuff. So you collect backpacks in the game, you collect pigeons, you take these bases, but along with all that is each district. So every time as you progress through the story, and I won't give you any story spoilers or anything, but as you progress through the story, new enemy gang types get introduced. And so like the gangs will start like wreaking havoc around the city, and you've got to put an end to their crimes. And the game's broken into 9 districts. And each district has one of every gang type in it. So you've got like the thugs, the negative people, these like crazy police things, and for some reason I think there's one more I'm forgetting. And each gang type has 5 activities, and you'll have to do the same 5 activities for every district. So there's 9 districts, and for each gang they have 5 activities, and they all blend together. And one of them involves like stopping these cars, and by the end of the game you'll have this animation of stopping a car in the exact same way, because it's one per gang per district. And it just gets so repetitive and tiresome. Like it's just the most like lazy padding of an open world game, and just like the activities you do, that the open world activities break down to just repeat these same repetitive tasks in every district. It's copy pasted things and collecting stuff. Find the black cats, hidden cats, find the pigeons, find the backpacks, and it's just collecting stuff and doing repetitive tasks. And it's just that really tiresome open world design that just isn't fun. Like I kind of wish they went. I think I'm not the biggest Assassin's Creed fan, but I think one thing the recent Assassin's Creeds have done well is adding a lot of story side quests and story bits and giving the rich lore of Spider-Man. There's so much they could have done with like having more side quests, but the side quests they have for the most part are kind of lame, except for there's one story arc involving one villain I won't name for spoiler reasons. But I think they could have done more like jump into the lore of Spider-Man, have more crazy side questing stuff, but it just boils down to collectibles and repetitive formulaic district tasks.
See, for like those open world games like that, they should all go back and play Saints Row 2 for a much better idea of how to put that together.
I love Saints Row 2. It's my favorite of the entire series. I actually don't like how over the top it started getting on 3 onwards. I think 2 is the perfect blend of just GTA clone over the topness. I really like Saints Row 2.
It gave you just enough insanity to the story and characters that all the stuff you did in the game didn't seem that out of place. Like, that was my big issue playing some of the Grand Theft Autos is, all right, the serious, like, realistic crime drama type story. I'm just going to run over this hooker and rob her wallet.
Yeah, I don't...
It felt so weird. Just the gameplay and the story didn't mesh. But Saints Row 2, they made it work.
Mm-hmm. I don't like with the recent GTA. I kind of wish Rockstar would go. They're so focused on making things realistic that they've kind of forgot what was fun. So like, I enjoyed GTA 5. It was okay. But I didn't like GTA 4. I think GTA 4 had a good story and stuff, but I think open world wise, like what the game has 9 weapons total, like it just wasn't very fun. And GTA 5, like they had this gorgeous world, but a lot of it was lifeless and empty. So you had like San Andreas that had so much to do. You could do all these things. I think like San Andreas had pool, it had the casinos. And so like GTA 5 in its world has a prison. You never do a prison break. Like this whole game about heists and you never enter the prison. It's just there to exist. It's got a horse racing arena. You never go bet on horses. It's got a casino. You can't enter the casino. You can't gamble. But instead what you can do is you can go do yoga. Or it's got those like or it's got those
Yoga.
or yeah, there's a yoga mini game in San Andreas. Or you know, it had like the Keflam missions that were funny as a rip on Scientology, but what you do is so lame. And I kind of get what they're going for, but it was dull. And then you had, you know, there's another side quest thing you can do in the open world to go find all the nuclear waste. And you're in this like really slow moving submarine just going to collect nuclear waste. And it's going around the entire map, takes ages, and it's just not fun. And I think Rockstar in a lot of ways, especially when it comes to GTA, has forgotten how to just make fun. And that doesn't mean you can't have fun in GTA 5. Like, you know, it's fun to just wreak havoc with the police and stuff. But I think like the stuff they do to fill that world, it's a big empty world with not a lot of things you can interact with. And I think they need to focus back on bringing back some of that things that you like. San Andreas, I think, was a great GTA. You could do so much. And as they lead more towards like trying to make these like more realism sims in ways, they've kind of forgotten how to make things enjoyable.
I'll have to take your word on that one because I've just never liked GTA. Like, I remember playing 3, I think it was, putting in some of the codes to just jack up your notoriety and then just murder waves of cops and FBI and military. That was fun.
Yeah, I really enjoyed 3, Vice City, San Andreas, and then when I had a PSP, I had the Liberty City stories and the Vice City stories, and I had fun with those.
Yeah, I could see why people got into those games. Just I couldn't take them seriously.
Plus, I think
couldn't go from the story to running over hookers for their money.
Yeah, I quite literally, I think I played GTA 3 'cause that came out in 2000, I think, going off the top of my head. So I think in like 5th or 6th grade, there used to be this family friend, and he had a PS2, and I didn't have a PS2 yet at the time. And so he let me borrow his PS2 with GTA 3. And as like a 10 or 11-year-old or however old I was, like I think I was under 13 still, playing GTA 3 was just like, when you're that age, was a fucking blast. And then I've just enjoyed this series since then, at least up till San Andreas. I think again 4 had that good story, but I think it was just the world was dull, and I think GTA works best when it's just over the top, full of things to do, and just they've really strayed away from that. Like again, GTA 5, you can do yoga, but the casino you can't enter. Okay.
I don't understand this mentality. Like, I know that was one of the issues with Final Fantasy 13 is you go to a giant chocobo theme park.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know how big you've ever been into Final Fantasy, but one of the biggest things in any of the games was Final Fantasy VII's chocobo races, which I didn't care for myself. But you got a giant chocobo theme park, and there's no chocobo races.
Yeah. 13 in general is just a mess of a game.
I couldn't bring myself to hate that one either. Like, I don't like it, but I just get no reaction from it.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest Final Fantasy fan. I've played a good chunk of them. Like I've played 2, 4, 6, 7, parts of 10, 13, 1, and 15. So not even half of them, but a decent chunk. And I've never been the biggest fan. Like I can enjoy them for what they are, but 13 I never finished. I got so bored. I hated the characters. That was like the big turnoff is I got so sick of that kid, the young boy with the mom, and then the girl, not the lead. I think Lightning was an okay enough character, kind of dull, but okay enough. But there's the chick with the red hair. She's like the really hot looking one. But she was such that stereotypical like anime, like annoying anime girl to me. And I couldn't stand her. So her and the boy just got so annoying in the story. And the linearity of it, like I actually got to the point where it becomes that open world area where you can fight like the big lumbering beasts. And around that time I was just like, I don't like this anymore. I can't move on.
See, there's part of the combat I sort of liked, and that's how, like, the combat of the game didn't take place in the battles.
Yeah.
It was all like your preemptive, how you're going to set up your paradigms, what you can switch between. That's the real combat of the game, is when you sit down and formulate that.
Mm-hmm.
But then the game plays itself from there going forward.
Yeah.
I like that little bit, but that's way too much of the game that's just playing on auto at that point.
Yeah, see, turn-based strategy, like the turn-based RPGs, like the Japanese style or JRPG style of that, I can enjoy in some games, but I'm not the biggest turn-based fan in general. So if it doesn't have a story or characters to hook me, eventually I'm going to get bored of the gameplay. And so if the story is not hooking me, and I know I'm going to get sick of the gameplay eventually, if that aspect isn't hooking me, I'm just going to be like, all right, I'm good on this.
Yeah, that's understandable. Like, that's my favorite genre.
Mm-hmm.
Is those are the games I tend towards most of those. Like, just the weird turn-based stuff. Your Atlas games are great.
Yeah. And like, I mean, I like some, like I said, one of my favorite games of all time is Chrono Trigger, but that also had a story I adore. And just like for its time, that was a fucking advanced game. Like the things they did in that game were so ahead of their time. So
what was it? 9 endings? 10? Something like that?
I think it might have even been more.
I think with the remake, it got up to 12 on the DS.
Okay. For some reason, I thought it was like over 20 for some reason.
I don't think it's that high.
Okay.
I remember like the most endings of any Super Nintendo game was Ogre Battle March of the Black Queen.
Mm-hmm. How many did that have?
Like 14 or 15.
Oh, okay.
But unlike Chrono Trigger, it wasn't like you could replay and end the game at different points to get different endings.
Yeah. But like
you have to replay the whole thing again.
Yeah. But like the first time you're at the festival, right? And then when you get like arrested and brought in front of the king and they're bringing up like the things you did or didn't do to determine if you're a good person at the festival, the first time you ever encounter that was so cool. You're like, holy shit, the game just kept track of that. I thought it was so...
I wish it kept track of more things like that, but yes, it was fantastic.
Yeah, for its time, it's just, and even I got the DS version a couple years ago to give it a replay because I've only ever played the game a few times in my life. And even on a replay, I was like, "Oh, this game is awesome." It dated well.
Yes, I still love Chrono Trigger. If you ever get the chance, play Chrono Cross. Just don't expect it to live up to Trigger, and you
Yeah.
should be fine. Like their dual text system in Cross is terrible.
Mhm.
Like basically the same, only despite getting what was it like 38 characters or maybe more, some absurd number. There are less double and triple text in that game than there are in Trigger.
Mhm.
I don't know how that happened.
Yeah. Well, if it ever comes across my path, I'll try to play it, but it seems like one of those that might just be lost to time for me.
Yeah, just don't expect it to live up to the standards of Trigger, and you should be fine.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I've heard from a lot of people.
Oh. Any final thoughts on Spyro?
I had fun with it. If you don't like 90s collectathons, it's not for you. I there's there's really not much to say about it. It's you collect gems. You do the same thing for I think each game took me between 8 to 10 hours, so for just under 30 hours, you're doing the same stuff. That's it.
Yeah.
It's relaxing. Like I said, it came at a good time. It came at a good I like how this whole stream derailed, but it's really not. But it came at a good time for me because I just come off of I had reviewed Red Dead, which was 100 hours in like 6 days, which talk about frying your brain sitting in front of a TV as many hours as I did. And then I did Quiet Man, kind of more of a joke is why I played that one. And then I did a Hitman, and that those were all in like 2 weeks, like binging just tons of games. And so Spyro just came at like a point where I could just like sit back, relax, and have a good time with it. So at the time I personally played it in my life, it was a good experience.
And I just say it's a competently made game. It's just kind of undercut by the fact there are better options out there for the same price or less.
Yeah.
And if you're into the more retro games, I still think you're better off going with something like Super Mario 64.
Yeah, that's fair. Though I do quick question. What is if like Toys for Bob could remake any game within the style that they've done, like they did Crash and Spyro, what would you like them to remake next?
Oh, that's a hard one. Like we already have Sly Cooper, so
Yeah.
that's out.
And I'm thinking keep it in like the 90s to early, like really early 2000.
Because I didn't play a whole lot of these. Like I played Donkey Kong 64, which when I
That's
replayed that on the classics, the controls aged fairly badly on that one.
yeah. I Well, you think I'll answer. I would really I don't I mean, again, this is just a dream because it's not one it has to be something Activision had the rights to, and they don't have this, but I would really love to see Ape Escape redone because I loved Ape Escape as a kid. I think it'd be cool to replay the first one. Or the Toomba games. I'd love to replay Toomba.
Never played either of those ones either.
Realistically, I wouldn't be surprised if, since Activision has the rights to it, I almost wouldn't be surprised if Toys for Bob, if they put him on Tony Hawk next. I could see them redoing 1 through 3, and I mean,
Those are the good ones.
there'd be some iffy stuff with music licensing, but they could just add new tracks or find a way to get around it. But I mean, Activision has billions upon billions of dollars, but not like I don't think they'd renew a lot of the licenses.
Which one had Spider-Man as an unlockable character? Was that 3?
Oh, I don't remember.
Because that was a really good one.
But if I was to guess what I think Toys for Bob could be doing next, I think it would be Tony Hawk, given it's Activision owned. But if I could pick anything, just anything at all, I'd really want to see Ape Escape.
Maybe Banjo-Kazooie. I never played those ones either. Those seemed like they'd be fun. But Rare has that license, and we know how Rare is these days.
Yeah. Actually,
I'll never forgive them for the Conker's Bad Fur Day remake.
oh god, You know what I'd really like to see too is Jet Force Gemini remade, because I really enjoyed Jet Force Gemini as a kid, and then I tried playing the Rare collection, and that game is unfucking playable with like its control scheme and how it is. It's miserable experience. So I'd really like to see Jet Force Gemini remade with some modernized controls.
I don't even know what that game is.
Uh, it's it's a fun little game where like you play as like three kind of like space people things. Like you've got like a boy, a girl, and you've got a dog who's got like a jetpack he can hover, and you're basically like saving this planet from these like ant things that are killing off these like little weird tribe folk things. It's a I don't know. It's I don't know how to explain Jet Force Gemini, but it's like an action platformer, and it was a lot of fun at the time. But
Oh,
they had the Rare remake for the Xbox One, and that was one of the games, but it was a miserable experience.
see, I mostly just remember playing like on my brother's Xbox when he picked up Conquer for it. They completely ruined the multiplayer, and I don't know how you do that. You just leave the multiplayer untouched,
Yeah.
and you're fine. And they replaced the models for the teddy bears with like the awesome looking stuffed bears with the stuffing coming out with actual bears.
Weird. I know to veer this back to Spyro a little bit, I know one thing that has irked some people is they made a few creative liberties when redesigning this one. So, and I don't know this from experience, this is what I've read from other people, because I never finished Spyro 1 as a kid, and then I never played 2 or 3 when I was young. And so at the end of the first game, are enemies with guns, and I guess in the original Spyro they shot bullets, but in this game they shoot this like little pink goo at you. And so there's some creative liberties in that. So I'm actually kind of curious like what else Spyro may have changed in regards to characters, if there's any like quote unquote offensive content they removed.
Hmm. I
Because
haven't
I
read
could,
anything up on that.
yeah, I'm guessing in this political climate, Activision was too afraid to put guns in a kid's game. They should have gone the ET route and just made them walkie talkies. If anyone didn't know, in ET, they when they put it back out in recent years, the FBI agents are supposed to have guns, and in some scenes they photoshopped in walkie talkies where their guns should be. Apparently,
There's some silly things people will do.
yeah, but it is weird that what things get changed. Like, why would they change the teddy bears and Conkers? Leave them as they are.
See, I don't even understand why you would change that at all.
Mhm.
It, I mean, they were stuffed bears. It's not offensive.
Yeah,
It's not unchild friendly. I mean, it's in Conquer Bad Fur Day. That's the least of their worries if that's what they're thinking.
yeah, because I mean that game's not made for kids, even though I'm sure most of us played it as kids. Yeah, I don't know.
No, I think my favorite bit of censorship I've ever seen done to a game is Xenosaga, the first one when it came out.
Yeah.
Like, I finally saw what the scene was like uncut in Japan. Is there's basically this dude that he regenerates to the point it's pretty much impossible to kill him.
Hmm.
And watching the original scene, he basically, to torment this person and break their spirit, cuts off his own head with a knife. It's like, all right. Apparently, someone was like, well, we can't have that. That's too terrifying for kids to watch. So let's just edit out the knife. So what's actually happening is he's ripping his own head off with his bare hands.
Because that's so much better.
Like, well, I mean, it makes the scene better.
Yeah.
But
I think in recent times, some of my favorite, and I use like sarcastically, Sony's been doing that awful censoring to some of their anime or um
what was it? Nico Rappa was like the censored Chinese version wasn't censored enough.
because like in their visual novels, and again, this isn't a genre I play or read or whatever you do, and but I've been seeing the screenshots where Sony's been putting in these like stupid looking white lights to cover the bodies of people, and it looks so dumb and pointless. Meanwhile, like Nintendo, which is more of the family company, is just letting this shit come out because games have ratings for a reason. But Sony's been doing the censorship, and it looks laughably bad.
It's so weird when you look at the company's histories too. Like,
yeah,
Nintendo was always the one that censored shit back in the day.
Yeah, they're really loosening up. Or if you want to see more, something funny too is Kingdom Hearts 3, they put up new screenshots, and in China, and you've seen those?
Yes, I loved it.
Yeah, I hope for Kingdom Hearts 3 that in China the 100-acre woods level is still there, but anytime Pooh's on screen, it's just a white orb. Like,
it's just the laziest censoring of it.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
It's so stupid. Censorship is just, that could be a whole another stream for another day, so I'm not gonna let us veer on that, but
all right. Well, I'm pretty sure I don't think we ever brought this up like on the stream proper, but neither one of us likes Spyro as a character.
Oh, he's miserable. His like little like 90s punk angst. I don't even know how to describe it, but he's a terrible character, and he would have been better as one of the silent protagonists.
But yeah, the story in at least those first two games is pretty much just there's an excuse to do stuff anyway, so whatever. You can just ignore them.
And I mean, and find me a 90s collectathon with a story that people remember. It is what it is. I do think in Spyro 2 they had some cute cutscenes that opened and exited, like introed and outroed every level. And I think some of those cutscenes had a few like little cute chuckle-worthy moments. But, like,
those were kind of amusing.
But like the story itself, like I kind of rolled my eyes when they introduced like the chick and then like the cheetah man, and I was like, okay, this game does not need an extended cast. And then when you start the third game and like some of those characters return, I'm just like, okay, sure, I'll accept it. Whatever.
What 90s edgy lead character doesn't have a furry side cast?
Yeah.
Well, I think after an hour and 20 minutes, just 20 minutes of Spyro discussion. In hindsight, that was a terrible game to do a stream talking about because, yeah, there's not much to talk about.
It's like I said, like when you asked me to come talk Spyro, I think my first question to you was like, out of every game I've reviewed, why Spyro? but no, this was a lot of fun. Like just talking about games in general, this was enjoyable. So yeah, thanks to anyone who listens to this. Thanks for tuning in.
So for anyone who catches this on YouTube, it's also going to be going up on BitChute once it finishes rendering. I'll edit that link into the description once it's live. Yeah, you can catch her review of Spyro down in the comments along with my original one. Yeah.
And if you don't know who I am, I'm a staff writer at Nichegamer.com. My Twitter is SophNar0747. I pretty much use that name for everything YouTube, so pretty easy to find. Full name Sophia Narwitz.
All right. Well, everyone, thanks for joining in, and I'll catch you next time I'm able to get one of these streams up and running.
Bye.